This is a list of publicly known Disney attractions that were never built. That is, rides and shows of Disney parks that never reached the final building stage. Some of them were fully designed and simply not built. Others were concepts, sometimes with preliminary artwork. Many were developed as far as it could, but funding was either reallocated, consolidated, and optimized in the, quote, best possible return of investment. In other major projects, signs of reuse documentation was evident in some of the parks. Walt Disney's Riverfront Square. A planned theme park in St. Louis, Missouri. That would have been the second Disney park, after Disneyland. 1963 to 1965. Disney Sea. An oceanic theme park designed to be part of Port Disney. 1990 to 1991. Westcott. A clone of Florida's Epcot, except in California. 1991 to 1995. Disney MGM Studios Europe. The original planned second theme park for Disneyland Paris, which eventually evolved into Walt Disney Studios Park, with development years of 1992 to 1995. Disney's America, which was a patriotic park to be located in Haymarket, Virginia. The Walt Disney Company also planned to retheme Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California. 1993 to 1994, with a brief stint in 1997. Singapore Disney Resort. It was expected to be the second in Asia after Japan's Tokyo Disney Resort. It reached the planning stages, but failed to materialize owing to land acquisition issues, and the Walt Disney Company having wished for the project to be primarily funded by the government. It was eventually cancelled and replaced by Hong Kong Disneyland. Singapore eventually built Universal Studios in 2010. We have here a rough estimate of the development years, spanning within the 1990s. National Harbor Resort Hotel. A 500-room hotel to be located at the National Harbor. An attempt at a national convention and visitor area in Maryland. In May of 2009, Disney had purchased 11 acres for the hotel for $11 million. And in November of 2011, they had canceled the project. Disneyland Resort Hotel. A luxurious 800-room complex that was to be constructed in the style of Coronado, California's Hotel del Coronado. It was inspired by Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa in Walt Disney World. Disney's Asian Resort, Venetian Resort, Persian Resort, and Mediterranean Resort. A Thai, Italian, Iranian, and Greek-themed resort, respectively, to be located where Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa is today, between the Contemporary Resort and the Transportation and Ticket Center. To be located on Bay Lake north of the Contemporary Resort, and, respectively, to be located on the Seven Seas Lagoon. Disney's Pop Century Resort, Legendary Years section. The other half of the resort, partially constructed, was abandoned following a drop in tourism due to the September 11 terrorist attacks. The Legendary Years section would have been themed to the 1900s through the 1940s. The completed structures in the land that Legendary Years would have occupied were instead turned into Disney's Art of Animation Resort. Adventure House. A walkthrough at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground that would have ended with a children's playground. Lilliputian Land. A land that was to be located north of Tomorrowland, east of Fantasyland. Everything would have been constructed on a greatly reduced scale. 1953 to 1955. Mythica. A land inspired by Greek and Roman myths and legends, with development years currently unknown. Tomorrowland 2055. An update and makeover of Tomorrowland with a more extraterrestrial theme. 2055 is the centennial of Disneyland. However, after Disneyland Paris failed, the project was abandoned due to budget cuts. 1993 to 1994. Big Town, USA. A New York-themed area where Mickey's Toontown now sits. It was to have featured a big Broadway-style theater that presented live stage shows every day. This idea became the inspiration for the American waterfront at Tokyo Disney Sea. 1976 to 1984. Edison Square. A land that was supposed to be themed to electricity and Thomas Edison. Would have looked like a city in the 1900s that just got electricity. Was supposed to be where the Plaza Inn and Space Mountain currently are. 1955 to 1960. Hollywoodland. A land that was to have a 1930s to 1940s theme with rides adapted from the Dick Tracy and Who Framed Roger Rabbit films. A similar land was built later, at California Adventure. However, a Benny the Cab ride, known as Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, adapted from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, can be found in Mickey's Toontown at Disneyland and Toontown at Tokyo Disneyland. 1996. Discovery Bay. A land that was a tribute to Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. Elements of the plans were later used at Disneyland Paris and Tokyo Disney Sea. Late 1970s. The Land of Legends. A land that was dedicated to American folklore and tall tales featuring attractions based on the legend of Sleepy Hollow, the Ballad of Windwagon Smith, a Paul Bunyan restaurant, and Western River Expedition, also in the late 1970s. Liberty Street. A land that would resemble 1776 Philadelphia and have a small harbor. Was to have its entrance off Main Street to the left of the Disneyland Opera House. A similar land named Liberty Square was later built at the Magic Kingdom in Florida. Dates range from 1955 to 1965. Western River Expedition. An area of the park themed after the western expansion of the United States. It was to be located in Frontierland, where Splash Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain currently sit. Exclusive to Epcot, the Costa Rica Pavilion, a Costa Rica-themed area which would have included a large greenhouse filled with tropical plants and birds. The Equatorial Africa Pavilion, an area in the park featuring the countries of Equatorial Africa. It would have featured a large 60-foot treehouse and a live show with a going title, Heartbeat of Africa, that would have featured elements of the continent's culture. Iran Pavilion, an area in the park featuring Iran. The pavilion was proposed before Epcot was constructed. It would have featured a dark ride exploring different parts of Persian history, and a shopping area based on a bazaar. After the Iranian Revolution saw the upheaval of the Shah of Iran, the concept was scrapped. Israel Pavilion. Advertised on billboards when Epcot opened, this would have recreated ancient Jerusalem with a courtyard stage and open-air restaurant. It remained unbuilt because of budget problems and security issues regarding the State of Israel. Puerto Rico Pavilion. During the projected Phase 2 expansion of Epcot, the Puerto Rico Pavilion was planned. Disney later said this speculation was false, but it was proven to be under works at one point. Soviet Union Pavilion. During the projected Phase 2 expansion of Epcot, a Russian-themed pavilion was planned. It would have been based on the Moscow Kremlin and dominated by a replica of St. Basil's Cathedral. Though after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the concept was scrapped. Spain Pavilion. Also advertised on billboards circa 1986. This pavilion would have featured a boat ride similar to Mexico, with the design blending elements of Barcelona and Madrid. Also planned were a film on Spain's history and a restaurant. Switzerland Pavilion. Planned primarily to bring a Matterhorn bobsled-style ride to Epcot. The United Arab Emirates Pavilion. A pavilion that would have paid tribute to the Middle East with a magic carpet ride attraction and a show focusing on how the Middle East paved the way for various ways of life and science. The Venezuela Pavilion. This pavilion would have included a waterfall, a high-rise built into a cliff, and an aerial tram ride. Mickey's Movie Land. An area dedicated to the old-fashioned Mickey Mouse shorts and classic movie production. A replica of Disney's original Hyperion Avenue studio. This area dedicated to the classic Mickey Mouse shorts. Guests would encounter hands-on exhibits demonstrating classic movie production, such as creating Foley sound effects or spinning projectors to see classic Mickey drawings animated. Muppet Studios and Roger Rabbit's Hollywood would be extensions of their respective IPs as well. For Disney's Animal Kingdom, we have Beastly Kingdom, a myths and legend themed land planned for Disney's Animal Kingdom. It was replaced by Camp Mini Mickey due to budget cuts after the failure of Disneyland Paris. Much of the land designated for use by Beastly Kingdom is now used for Pandora, the world of Avatar. Within Hong Kong Disneyland, a couple of locations that might sound familiar. Frontierland, Toontown, Pirates Land, and Glacier Bay. All lands respective of their IPs. For instance, Toontown, a much more advanced version than its sisters in the other Disney parks. This area would have featured a roller coaster, an animatronic show, character houses, and character meet and greets. It may have become the idea for Toon's studio in Walt Disney Studios parks. And finally, the attractions. Indiana Jones and the Lost Expedition. A huge complex designed to house the Indiana Jones adventure, as well as a minecart roller coaster and part of the Jungle Cruise, with the Disneyland Railroad traveling through the middle. The Museum of the Weird. A planned attraction within an attraction to be included at the beginning of the Haunted Mansion attraction. It was suggested and named by Walt Disney after a sleepless night spent thinking of a way to use all the strange and unusual concepts created for the attraction by Imagineer Rolly Crump. It included a chair that stood up and talked, and many other weird things that had been collected from around the world. It was eventually cancelled when the Haunted Mansion attraction was changed from a walk-through attraction to a ride-through attraction. Several of the Museum of the Weird's designs were incorporated into the Haunted Mansion attraction, including the wallpaper on the walls of the corridor of door scene. Fireworks Factory, an interactive shooter ride designed for Discovery Bay, housed inside a fireworks factory where guests would shoot at skyrockets, pinwheels, and other fireworks. A much smaller version was placed in Mickey's Toontown. Mickey's Madhouse, a funhouse adventure featuring clowns and such. And finally, Paparazzi Pursuit. The original idea that eventually became the ill-fated Superstar Limo ride in Disney California Adventure. Originally planned as a near clone of the Rock and Roller Coaster, placing guests in the seats of actors trying to make the premiere of their newest hit film at the Chinese theater while dodging paparazzi and freeway traffic, the ride was reimagined at the insistence of Michael Eisner following the death of Princess Diana under eerily similar circumstances into a much slower, darker ride, with more of a focus on meeting caricatures of the era's most popular celebrities and many inside jokes of the entertainment industry. The final version of the ride, renamed Superstar Limo, was hated by both park guests and Imagineers, ultimately leading to its closure less than a year after it opened. The list goes on and on, but I'm sure you get the point.